Hello and welcome to Modest Culture. Good morning, Phil.
Good bonus me. Good bonus.
Good morning, Grain, and good morning, everyone who is going to join us live and will watch us recorded later. Uh, please, please make sure that when you are here and you are finding some value, or you are feeling interested, or you simply says, "Okay, oh, I don't like this," okay, or maybe I don't agree with this, please make sure that you are making it obvious for us so we can respond to that. We can actually, okay, if we really need to make some changes, make some changes. Of course, we are going to do that. We are very open for all these things. So, coming back to today's thought, and we are here after having a Saturday, which is our off day, and we were not doing anything. We are being lazy, too lazy, and just chilling, doing nothing. I was, yes, I was hoping to do something, but okay, as appropriate. And today, of course, we were having some problem with communication. And when the communication part happened, uh, I was thinking about that how I acquire this patience. I would be super irritated in normal circumstances that okay, why this is happening, why it is not working, why all these things. But I was like, okay, yes, I'm trying. This is all I can do. Keep trying. Use different strategy, like okay, using different apps, okay, Messenger there, and checking my network, restart your phone, or doing all these things. But I was just paying attention to my own patience level and persistence. How it came in a normal way, I would say that oh, I have no idea how it happens. No, actually, I was working on I was for like 3 years now. I'm continuously working on these type of things. The first thing, Sil, when really it blows my mind in the way of impeccability, was the having being completely okay with awkward silence. And it was a very really it lifts a burden from me. But awkward silence in the local in a very limited way, I was assuming that okay, when people having conversation and something happened, like someone says something which is of course not appropriate, or someone is not feeling good about it, and then they have an awkward silence, then you can okay. And sometimes good earnest people just say, oh, they just try to clear up the air, and then they say, oh, no, it was not like that, and all that. But actually the having this idea, this concept of being okay with awkward silence is more than that. Sometimes this awkward silence can be from the universe. Sometimes this awkward silence can be from your work, like okay, you are implementing something and the results are not coming. And also it is about taking unnecessary, undue, and others responsibilities on yourself. This is how we do that. And I was assuming that, oh, yes, it's about the good, earnest people. This is how they do. But actually, it's a very subtle ego gesture. Oh, they are not understanding, but I do understand. And it is my responsibility because they don't
Superiority
have any.
paradigm.
Yes. So they don't have idea. And other people are going to hurt. And of course, they are feeling hurt and they are feeling neglected or ignored or whatever. And we assume that we have this ability, we have this responsibility, we have those skills, and on top of that we assume that others need our help.
There you go. Because I'm so
And
important, others must need my help. Uh,
yes, and I was like, wow, just one simple concept of being okay with awkward silence. I took it in a limited concept first, like okay, in communication, because I was the one like okay who always tried to do that. Me and my sister like always trying to do also. But today, when I was just waiting for that, it spreads all over the whole way of being, the whole way of life also. Being okay with the awkward silence, is not limited to communication only with others.
no.
It spreads over being okay when universe is not responding the way you want.
right.
It's
And
awkward
being okay with
silence.
awkward reality.
It's an awkward silence from the universe. It's a pause. In those moments, what we have. So okay, that was the thing. What to do when, okay, I'm not saying anything, okay, I'm not jumping out, I'm not taking responsibilities, I'm not trying to be a hero in every situation. But what to do then? Because the urge, the energy is there. And that was something like really problematic for me, to just stay idle, just sit there and do nothing. And then the other concept of way of impeccability was taking a power pause. That was huge, because when you are okay, when you are implementing being okay with awkward silence, then what you have to do, because now you are having an awkward silence, okay, remind yourself that you are taking a power pause. And power pause is actually taking your power back from every situation, from everything. And of course, in those moments, gaining your powers back to yourself and being okay with that. That was so huge. That was so mind blowing. And that was so transformative for me, not just in communication, but just being myself, just being a human being in this life, in this universe. So that was so huge. I'm sharing this because I need to remind myself I can take my powers back. I have to take my powers back. And of course, I'm going to take my power back. But also, I need to take a step back and just be okay with awkward silence, because I need to disconnect myself from the superiority paradigm, from the ego nonsense that I can do all these things and other people need this. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. That was the idea we had. So that was my thought of the day. I hope that you find it interesting, but also it is so
Oh, very
important.
interesting. Yes.
So thank you so much. And sir, you are done all with all your sharing and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I took a
Yeah.
lot of time actually.
Oh, no, no, no. Actually, less than usual. Interestingly enough.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, oh, that's good.
Okay.
That's good. Ah, let's
So
continue with our
let's
reading. Let's
let's
continue with our reading. We were at the interesting story. Well, I was looking out for Lisa, but Lisa went offline. I was hoping she'd come and listen because I wanted to explain something, but I never got there. Ah, hmm, just minimizing windows. How many windows do I have? 60, 70, 80, 90? No, it seems like that. A lot of open windows. All right, just want this one. Yeah, now, yeah, very good.
and
Put it on.
by the way,
Yeah.
congrats for crossing those the milestone of 1,000 subscriber.
Oh, I think we're way over that. We're like, I don't know, 1,300, 400, something like that now. But yes, it is a good milestone.
Yes, yes.
You know, I'm supposed to get all excited about this, but I'm like, okay, you know, I'm doing the exact same thing as
I
what I did before.
I'm
Uh,
excited, so that's why I don't
It
mind.
does have practical benefits, and for those I'm happy. But as when it
Yes.
comes to what we do, makes no difference. So my ego is not saying, "Wow, I got." I very feel very happy to be able to say that my ego don't care two hoots about it, which is good.
It's not
I
about
work
ego,
very hard,
actually. No,
precisely.
actually,
But for some
yes,
people it is, Rita. For some people,
yes, yes. But it's not about ego. It's about that the mourners culture is actually growing.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, the sharing of mourners culture is growing. Let's just be a little bit more precise. Okay,
Okay. Yes.
slightly different thing.
Yes.
Mourners culture itself, well, it grows in terms of our understanding of it, our definition of it, our enjoyment of it, our involvement in it. But what I think you mean is the the attendance or the immersion or the involvement and the usage, the subscription to mourners culture. Well, it's yes, that is growing, but not not at the same rate as the subscribers, right? So those who are getting into mourners culture and utilizing mourners culture in their day-to-day lives, we don't really know. We haven't gotten feedback yet. Just because somebody's watching about mourners culture doesn't mean they're actually using mourners culture, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean that mourners culture itself is growing, right? And when you think of like Facebook culture, people attending Facebook, okay, they're not necessarily directly part of Facebook culture, but for the most part, they might be. They might embrace Facebook culture, being on Facebook. They may be on Facebook and not embrace Facebook culture, right? Which happens a lot. Yeah.
Yes.
And I was thinking about this when I was thinking about was Lisa asked about more detail on mourners culture, what exactly it is. And it's
Hmm.
difficult to say in a sentence. I was trying to do it in a sentence, but to say mourners culture, Facebook culture is a very good example because Facebook culture is very large. It's global. It's not. It doesn't nationality or religion or anything. None of that is present. But yet, there's a very distinct culture to Facebook culture. Compare it to TikTok culture. Very different, right? Right, Vina?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, anybody who's into social media will say, "Oh, yeah, I can see the difference between the two." Now, when you look at Facebook culture or TikTok culture, how much of it is deliberately created? Quite a bit, more than you think, more than you realize, because they don't make a post to say this is what Facebook culture is. They would actually be advised to do that, but they never did. It just kind of they do it in very subtle little ways, right? To encourage this, encourage that, and they don't specifically come out and say this is Facebook culture. In some of the games, the big MMOs, right, which have lots and lots of people playing it. In one of them specifically, uh, they they very deliberately said we want to create a different culture in this game compared to World of Warcraft. The World of Warcraft uh, had a very acidic, very toxic culture in their chat. People putting down everybody, superiority paradigm, hierarchy, being nasty, being mean. Uh,
Hmm.
the legal penalties, cyberbullying as an actual crime came about because of that. Okay,
Hmm. Hmm.
it led to it in other places, and so it became illegal. Cyberbullying, you can actually get charged for this and go to jail for it. Right, came about because of that. It's very interesting. So this game, very similar. It's also a fantasy MMO. But they said, no, we want to be more supportive and more community focused. And they very specifically laid out in their terms of not terms of service, in their corporate plan, when they developed the game, their goals, their aims. They said, this is what we want, this is what we want, and they want to change this and have a game that has a different culture, a non-toxic culture. Right? So it was a start. Didn't go into depth, but it was a start. Very cool. Very cool. So Mona's culture is now doing the same thing as what Facebook and Instagram and what this was Guild Wars 2 to be specific on the game. What they tried to do, except doing it fully and thoroughly and properly. I mean, they did, like, compared to Mona's culture, I don't know, they may even have done 1%. Yes, to build a culture. All right, that's just my nature. I'm very thorough, very comprehensive, and when it comes to this topic, this is what I know. This is what I do. This is what I'm about. Right. So I'm taking the entirety of what I bring to the table, and now I am sharing it in a cultural format. Right, which it's not necessarily about specific things. Yes, there is a basis for this, and you can go and learn that. but the overallness, it's supported by much. Right? So if you want to really get into detail, you can come and do wave impeccability, do the program. You can do capital H hearing, you can do superiority paradigm. You can even go all the way to the new nobility one if you want to, right?
Mm.
So the key point I'm making here is the culture is an environment in which specific things happen, right? Or which it's not so much specific. At least it's a it's an environment. It's a climate, and that's a better way of thinking of a culture, right? It's a climate, an environment that encourages certain things, yeah, and
Mm.
discourages others. So the climate of Mona's culture, excuse me, the climate of Mona's culture discourages superiority and that pettiness that Vina was talking about earlier about ego and the silliness of it, how it materializes. It's also a climate in which is encouraging awareness. Look at Vina's share, her thought of the day, which is a share. She was sharing about an insight, an understanding, a discernment, many of them or multiple, which she has acquired as a result of Mona's culture, right? And way of impeccability, which is the foundational program for Mona's culture. That's huge. In other words, she's sharing Mona's. She was in an awareness at one time and didn't realize, and then she became aware and it changed her life. Yes?
Yes.
Mona's culture is a climate that encourages that extra awareness, that depth of awareness, that discernment. In most of our cultures, that is not encouraged, strangely enough. When you say something like, okay, Bina had this as a child. She says, yeah, but why are you like making up all this stuff because you're awkward? Whatever. Shut up. Don't ask awkward questions. And don't be clever.
Yes.
Don't
Yes.
be clever.
Yes.
How often have we not heard this? Don't be clever. Seriously, you want me to be stupid? Well, yes. Why? Don't be
Yes.
clever means don't be too insightful. Don't be too discerning. Don't be too aware. That's what it really means. Not literally be stupid, like as in you can't read or write or whatever, do math, anything like that. Yeah. So it's
Yes.
to be appropriately conformist. In other words, don't bring those awkwards, the awkward silence. Don't be paying attention to the awkward part. It's not silence that's the issue. It's awkwardness. Yeah. So people
Yes.
cover it because when they're not making a big fuss about it, if there's silence, the awkwardness is very obvious. So what they're trying to do is cover the awkwardness, not cover the silence. Yeah. So they cover the awkwardness with blah 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 nonsense. Yeah. Attracting of attention. But still, the thing that they teach inadvertently and directly, even some of the mothers, especially, well, fathers too, but they are teaching you to not be discerning, not be insightful, not speak up, not be honest.
Yes. Yes.
Terrible, absolutely terrible. Huh?
And I understand that, okay, there is some love, of course, some goodness in there, because they want to protect you,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
people of course are going to be like, okay, and not in good terms with you when you say exactly what is happening,
yeah.
because hypocrisy is so entrenched in our culture, in our society, that we don't want to acknowledge what is happening. I cannot say about myself that I'm completely out of it. The example is that Sil has as a book. He wrote a book, and it's about BS. I don't say
Right.
these words. I don't
Good
say
for
these
you.
words.
Good for you.
Okay, okay. I don't say these words, but in
Yeah,
actuality, this is what it is. Okay. I don't want to say this. I have my own peculiar reasons for that. But
yeah.
actually, it is something I'm just saying that we have this problem, that the problem exists, situation is there, acts are there, everybody is aware of it, but you cannot name it. You cannot say it exactly what they are doing. because this is how we actually try to sugarcoat it with politeness, but actually it's hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And I'm part of it, like, okay, not completely out of it. I want to,
Wonderful, Bina.
but yes.
Well, Linda is here. Hello, Linda.
Okay.
Oh,
Hello.
Linda sent a love and hands. Lovely, lovely. Thank you for the comment, Linda. To know that it really matters. Just that now that I know you here, I feel like now I'm part of community. Not to say anything else, but I know you here. So now you are included to me and Bina also, right? This is how we
Yes.
are. Just that you make that, and now you're part of what we're talking about. You're included. I love this. Right. So now when I say, okay, let's continue with our reading, I'm not just saying it to Bina. I'm saying it to you also, Linda. You see, inside in me, this is just for me. Inclusivity is very huge, and having somebody join us, this is wonderful. Yeah? Rather than just viewing where we don't know who you are or don't even know that you're there. Right. That inclusivity, it really adds a lot. To feel that you don't have to do anything. Right. I mean, just being here. But for us, we include you. It's just one of the things that are part of Mona's culture. Inclusivity. Inclusivity is a huge, huge, huge component. Yes, and we love this. All right. So, Linda, we are continuing on the chapter in this Carlos's third book, Journey to Ixtlan, and the chapter is called "Assuming Responsibility." It is a technique for stopping the world. Now, what we are doing is we are not reading Carlos. We are doing a capital R reading of this information, which is mainly coming from Don Juan. But we are doing so for the purposes of expanding our awareness, for deepening our insight, for connecting to it in such a way that it is usable, which is very important. We are looking to unravel things so that we can see the layers. We are looking to discern. We're looking to connect to the implications, the consequences, the extrapolations, etc. So that is connecting to the monas, not just connecting to the monas, but extracting monas, even if that monas was not intended. Right? Even if it was specifically the opposite, right? We can get monas out. So we are extracting monas. That's what a capital R reads. Yep, extracting monas. All right. So, Bina, let's continue from here. Right. This is done one. Right. So I'll read you. You ready?
Yes.
No, Bina's not ready. All right. You ready now? Yes. You ready
Yes.
to read? Okay. All right. Well, you were muted, so it's for me to start. But okay.
Okay.
All right. So it's me. Yeah. No,
Okay.
this is me. Do you want to know? It's me. Do you want to know what I did to you the first day we met? I perceived you, and I perceived that you thought you were lying to me, but you weren't. Not really.
I told him that his explanation confused me even more. He replied that was the reason he did not want to explain his acts, and that explanation were not necessary. He said that the only thing that counted was action, acting instead of talking.
All right. So this is here. See, is a great example of bringing mourners to bear. What counted is application rather than
Hmm.
action. Yes, action is accurate, but it gives the wrong impression.
Yes.
Application is taking something that you were shown specifically and applying it. Action could be anything. I mean, all right, we're talking and you say, well, action. Okay, I'll get up and walk around. That's action. It means nothing, right? So it's application. And that's why application is in our dictionary of powers one of the capital A terms, right? This is a great example of us connecting to that moreness, right? What counted was action. No, what counted is application, right? By implication, you are implementing it. But that application can be an action that is not a physical action. We tend to think and associate action with physicality. That's why application is better. Because if I'm making an internal application, like in this case, where the application is to assume responsibility, and to disconnect from your self-importance, right? See, it's assuming responsibility. This is a very big deal, and in way of impeccability, I go into this in real depth, and we'll get to this at the end. I'll share my point on assuming responsibility. Uh, where was I now? I lost my space here. All right, there we go. All right, let's continue, Bina.
Okay. I told him, sorry. He
You
said
pulled.
that the only thing that counted was action, acting instead of talking. He pulled out a straw mat and lay down, propping his head up with a bundle. He made himself comfortable, and then he told me that there was another thing I had to perform if I really wanted to learn about plants.
What was wrong with you when I perceived you, and what is wrong with you now is that you don't like to take responsibility for what you do.
He said slowly, as if to give me time to understand what he was saying.
When you were telling me all those things in the bus depot, you were aware they were lies. Why were you lying?
I explained that my objective had been to find a key informant for my work. Don Juan smiled and began humming a Mexican tune.
When a person decides to do something, they must go all the way. But they must take responsibility for what they do. No matter what they do, they must know first why they are doing it, and then they must proceed with their actions without having doubts or remorse about it.
He examined me. Oh,
Oh, go ahead, go ahead. I just want to copy this while
okay.
you read.
He examined me. I did not know what to say. Finally, I ventured an opinion, almost as a protest. That's an impossibility, I said. He asked
Now,
me
now,
why.
hang on. While I paste this into my code file, which I
Yes,
missed a few here, by the way, but the way we're doing this is not the most ideal way to create the code file because it's a bit disruptive of what we do. But if you're reading it on your own, take that time to make the code file. Okay, very, very important. Uh, so, do you think it's an impossibility, Bina? What about you,
yes.
Linda? You think it's an impossibility, Linda?
It's quite funny, actually.
Yeah,
Strange
yeah, yeah,
remarks from Don Juan. And he
yeah,
says, "Oh,
yeah.
that's an impossibility."
No, no, Don Juan says, Carlos is saying it's an impossibility,
Yes,
not Don Juan.
Carlos. Yes, yes. Sorry,
Oh,
Carlos.
oh, no, it totally fits in Carlos. Yeah. All right, okay, continue, continue, continue.
He asked me why, and I said that perhaps ideally that what everybody thought they should do. In practice, however, there was no way to avoid doubts and remorse.
There is a way, and
But
I
I,
personally will. Hang on, I personally need to also uh, uh, respond with conviction. Of course, there is a way. Yes, and you know
yes,
this, Bina. You know there is a
yes,
way because you're applying
yes,
this way. You are living
yes,
this way, right? So
yes,
this is very important. This is not just Don Juan's opinion here, where we're reading and say, "Oh, this is very nice. It's all theoretical." No, Bina and I are asserting from personal experience, not only
yes,
when it comes to ourselves, but also when it comes to others. This
yes,
is via doing way of impeccability. This is one of the
exactly.
core elements of way of impeccability. Yeah? So this
Okay,
is a huge deal. And beside that, it can go even simpler than that. But all right, we'll get to that. We'll get to it.
okay. He
Look
asked
at
me why,
me.
and
Oh,
yeah,
no, it's still me. Look at me. I have no doubts or remorse. Everything I do is my decision and my responsibility. The simplest thing I do to take you out for a walk in the desert, for instance, may very well mean my death. Death is stalking me. Therefore, I have no room for doubts or remorse. If I have to die as a result of taking you for a walk, then I must die. All right. Now, personally, I have lived this exact same scenario. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah, right. When I lived in the desert, right, I didn't specifically go and choose to live there. I got there by accident. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but nonetheless, yeah, that when I was there, and we had a garden that was a couple of miles away where we were growing food. There's very little water where we were. There wasn't enough water to grow food. Right, the little well was very shallow. It was about let's see, 2 feet wide by about half a foot deep, maybe a three-quarter foot deep. Anyway, you'd scoop it out, and then it would take a long time for the water to trickle back through the rock. So you got maybe a couple of buckets of water a day out of it at the most. So anyway, but walking to that garden was taking your life into your hands because we had no phone, no car, no neighbors, no nothing. And so if you fall down, you break your ankle or whatever, well, you're kind of doomed, See, taking your life into your hands. So you might be able to hobble back, but you could die of dehydration in the meantime, because it was ridiculously hot out there. So I'm just saying, it was a very good lesson. And besides, same thing. When I was homeless, same deal. But
Yes.
you drive in your car, same deal. People forget they take their lives into their hands. You wake up every day, you could have a meteor, you could have a stroke, you could have whatever. Death is always there. Right? So we don't think going to the supermarket is an act where you take your life into your hands. But really, think about this.
Oh,
The universe has brought you a really clear example that yes, it is. How many people died in the last couple of years? Yes, right? Last 5 years now, more or less. How many people have died because they went to the supermarket or they went to a party or they went to a sports event or whatever? How many, Beaver? Bina?
I don't know.
Millions, millions, millions. Where did people get COVID from?
Yes.
Doing simple things like going to the supermarket or going to a sports event, going to a party, going visiting your friends. Took your life into
Yes.
your hands. How many people were actually able to take the appropriate precautions and have that
Yes.
impeccability to do so? Yeah. Yes, most did, but many did not. That's why many died. Yeah. See, it's a fantastic example that simple things, we need to take responsibility for our actions. Right? People want to complain afterwards, but that's too late. Too late. All right, I'll read this again. Yeah. Look at me.
Yes.
I have no doubts or remorse. Everything I do is my decision and my responsibility. The simplest thing I do, to take you for a walk in the desert, for instance, may very well mean my death. Death is stalking me. Therefore, I have no room for doubts or remorse. If I have to die as a result of taking you for a walk, then I must die. There's more to this. There's more to
Hmm.
this. How did Don Juan get to that decision? He's not just taking it blindly. Yes. The reason
Yes.
why he has no doubts or remorse is because of his decision making process, which we're going to get to later. He continues. Don Juan continues. You, on the other hand, feel that you are immortal, and the decisions of an immortal person can be cancelled or regretted or doubted. In a world where death is the hunter, my friend, there is no time for regrets or doubts. There is only time for decisions. Now, here, it is important to qualify. It's going to be shared later on, but Carlos, because Carlos is writing this, right? Those might be Don Juan's exact words, but it's absolutely implied. There is only time for impeccable decisions. This is the difference. This is how you get to have no doubts and no remorse by making impeccable decisions. An impeccable decision does not mean it is correct. It is an impeccably made decision. Impeccably made doesn't mean it's correct. It may be, it may not be. That's going to depend on the data and the information and the circumstances, right? It may be out of your hands. You can impeccably make a decision and it can still be the wrong decision. Those always turn out to be fortuitous mistakes, at least in my experience, And it's a huge deal to be aware of that. But the key is to impeccably make your decisions, not to make a decision itself that is necessarily correct, right? A decision can't be impeccable. A decision cannot be impeccable. You can make the decision impeccably. You can be impeccable, but the decision itself can't do. It's not in the power of decisions to do this, right? So understand the difference here. Very, 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 very important, right? And this is key. There is only time for impeccable decisions. There's only time for impeccability, in other words, right? So again, see, it's about impeccability. Or there's only time for impeccably made decisions to
Made
be more accurate.
decisions. Yes.
Accuracy is important, right? Impeccably made decisions. All right, continue, please, Bina. Linda, are you still with us? Are you still with us, Linda? I hope we haven't put you to sleep yet. I hope so. I hope so.
I argued in sincerity that, in my opinion, that was an unreal world because it was arbitrarily made by taking an idealized form of behavior and saying that was the way to proceed. I told him the story of my
And
father.
saying that was, right? So the two that's, it's not a typo.
Okay. And
It's
saying
how
that
Carlos likes
that
to say.
was the way to proceed. I told him the
Yeah.
story of my father, who used to give me endless lectures about the wonders of healthy mind in a healthy body, and how young men should temper their bodies with hardship and with feats of athletic competition. He was a young man when I was 8 years old. He was only 27. During the summertime, as a rule, he would come from the city where he taught school to spend at least a month with me at my grandparents' farm where I lived. It was a hellish month for me. I told Don Juan one instance of my father's behavior that I thought would apply to the situation at hand. Almost
One
immediately.
word here to keep in mind. Sorry,
Yeah.
just as a contextual to hold it in your awareness while reading the story. Application, not action. Application, right? The
Yes.
difference. Okay,
Yes.
keep going.
Yes. Almost immediately upon arriving at the farm, my father would insist on taking a long walk with me at his side, so we could talk things over. And while we were talking, he would make plans for us to go swimming every day at 6 a.m. At night, he would set the alarm for 5:30 to have plenty of time, because at 6 sharp we had to be in the water. And when the alarm would go off in the morning, he would jump out of bed, put on his glasses, go to the window, and look out. I had even memorized the ensuing monologue. A bit cloudy today. Listen, I'm going to lie down again for just 5 minutes, okay? No more than five. I'm just going to stretch my muscles and fully wake up. He would invariably fall asleep again until 10, sometimes until noon. I told Don Juan that what annoyed me was his refusal to give up his obviously phony resolutions. He would repeat this ritual every morning until I would finally hurt his feelings by refusing to set the alarm clock.
This is a wonderful story, right? Continue, please. Oh, Don Juan says they were not for phony resolutions.
Don Juan said, obviously taking sides with my father.
He just didn't know how to get out of bed. That's all.
At any rate, I'm always leery of unreal resolutions.
What would be a resolution that is real then?
Don Juan asked with a coy smile. If my father would have said to himself that he could not go swimming at 6 in the morning, but perhaps at 3 in the afternoon.
Your resolutions injure the spirit.
Don Juan said with an air of great seriousness. I thought I even detected a note of sadness in his tone. We were quiet for a long time. My peevishness had vanished. I thought of my father.
He didn't want to swim at 3 in the afternoon. Don't you see?
His words made me jump. I told him that my father was weak, and so was his world of ideal acts that he never performed. I was almost shouting. Don Juan did not say a word. He shook his head slowly in a rhythmical way. I felt terribly sad. Thinking of my father always gave me a consuming feeling.
You think you were stronger, don't you?
He asked in a casual tone. I said I did, and I began to tell him all the emotional turmoil that my father had put me through. But he interrupted me.
Was he mean to you?
No,
Was he petty with you?
no,
Did he do all he could for you?
yes.
Then what was wrong with him?
Again, I began to shout that he was weak, but I caught myself and lowered my voice. I felt a bit ludicrous being cross examined by Don Juan. What are you doing all this for? We were supposed to be talking about plants. I felt more annoyed and despondent than ever. I told him that he had no business or or the remotest qualifications to pass judgment on my behavior, and he exploded into a belly laugh.
When you get angry, you always feel righteous, don't you? I don't know how to blink like a bird, but yeah.
He said and blinked like a bird. He was right. I had the tendency to feel justified at being angry. Let's not talk about my father, I said, uh, feigning a happy mood. Let's talk about plants.
No, let's talk about your father. That is the place to begin today. If you think that you were so much stronger than he, why didn't you go swimming at 6 in the morning in his place?
I told him that I could not believe he was seriously asking me that. I had always thought that swimming at 6 in the morning was my father's business and not mine.
Oh, huh, huh. It was also your business from the moment you accepted his idea. Let me repeat that. It was also your business from the moment you accepted his idea. Bought into it, you accepted responsibility. Yeah.
Oh my god. Like, really, a huge and the most sophisticated perspective shifting ever. Oh,
Yes.
oh. Seriously?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Oh,
This is important here. Right now, look at what went on inside Carlos. Because Carlos does not live with self honesty as a core component, never mind external honesty. That's why what Don Juan says and what Carlos internally undertook and happened for him, two different things. Read on, please, Pina. You can
oh,
leave out these that's of Carlos if you want to. For me, I just skip over them. By the way, it makes
okay,
for nicer reading. Yeah.
okay. I had never accepted it. That I had always known my father was not truthful to himself. Don Juan asked me matter of factly why I had not voiced my opinion at the time. You don't tell your father things like that, I said as a weak explanation.
Why not?
That was not done in my house, that's all.
You have done worse things in your house.
He declared like a judge from the bench.
The only thing you never did was shine your spirit.
There was such a devastating force in his words that they echoed in my mind. He brought all my defenses down. I could not argue with him. I took refuge in writing my notes. I tried a last feeble explanation and said that all my life
I had encountered people of my father's kind, who had, like my father, hooked me somehow into their schemes, and as a rule, I had always been left dangling.
You're complaining. You have been complaining all your life because you don't assume responsibility for your decision. If you would have assumed responsibility for your father's idea of swimming at 6 in the morning, you would have swum by yourself if necessary, or you would have told him to go to hell the first time he opened his mouth after you knew his devices. But you didn't say anything. Therefore, you were as weak as your father. To
To assume
assume
the
the
res-
responsibility of one's decisions means one is ready to die for them.
Wait, you are twisting this around. He did not let me finish. I was going to tell him that I had used my father only as an example of an unrealistic way of acting, and that nobody in his right mind would be willing to die for such an idiotic thing.
Now, really just pause there and understand the difference between Carlos's point here and Don Juan's. How Carlos is not getting it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yes.
big deal. It doesn't matter what the decision is. Nothing could be more or less serious than anything else. Don't you see? In a world where death is the hunter, there's no small or big decisions. There are only decisions we make in the face of our ultimate death. It's hierarchy. It's hierarchy, superiority paradigm that's affecting Carlos's idea, right? Eh, Of course, you can only risk your death for important stuff because everything is on the scale of importance. Trivial, you die because of trivial things. You die because you went to go and get a Coke at the supermarket and you weren't paying attention, or the convenience store, and you had an accident and you die, right? You don't die because of important things. You die because of trivial things, typically. Yeah, sometimes you do, but in general, people die for stupid reasons.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's just this hierarchy idea, to risk your life for something. It's just the context in which Carlos flavors it because of superiority paradigm. Don Juan is shifting the context, shifting the paradigm. Very, very cool. All right. I don't know where we will continue, please. Oh, Don Juan says there are only decisions we make in the face of our inevitable death.
Uh, it doesn't matter what the decision is.
No, no, no. Yeah, that that was
Okay.
that was
Okay.
that was Don Juan. This is you.
Okay. I could not say anything. Perhaps an hour went by. Don Juan was perfectly motionless on his mat, although he was not sleeping. Why do you tell me all this, Don Juan? Why are you doing this to me?
You came to me. No, that was not the case. You were brought to me, and I have had a gesture with you. That should be a capital G there for gesture.
I
And
beg your
I have
pardon?
had a gesture with you.
I beg your pardon?
You could have had a gesture with your father by swimming for him, but you didn't. Perhaps because you were too young. I have lived longer than you. I have nothing pending. There is no hurry in my life. Therefore, I can properly have a gesture with you.
In the afternoon, we went for a hike. I easily kept his pace and marveled again at his stupendous physical powers. No, prowess. Physical prowess.
Prowess, prowess, prowess.
Prowess. Physical prowess. He walked so nimbly and with such sure steps that next to him I was like a child. We went in an easterly direction. I noticed then that he did not like to talk while he walked. If I spoke to him, he would stop walking in order to answer. After a couple of hours, we came to a hill. He sat down and signaled me to sit by him. He announced in a mock dramatic tone that he was going to tell me a story.
All right, I'll read
Please
this
sit.
part. I'll,
Okay.
I'll read this part. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because It's not Don Juan's words, but he's telling the story. You know what I mean? So it
Yes,
just makes it
yes.
better, right? Once upon a time, there was a young man, a destitute Indian, who lived among the white men in a city. He had no home, no relatives, no friends. He had come into the city to find his fortune and had found only misery and pain. From time to time, he made a few cents working like a mule, barely enough for a morsel. Otherwise, he had to beg or steal food. One day, the young man went to the marketplace. He walked up and down the street in a haze, his eyes wild upon seeing all the good things that were gathered there. He was so frantic he did not see where he was walking and ended up tripping over some baskets and falling on top of an old man. The old man was carrying four enormous gourds and had just sat down to rest and eat. Juan smiled knowingly and said, "The old man found it quite strange that the young man had stumbled on him. He was not angry at being disturbed, but amazed at why this particular young man had fallen on top of him. The young man, on the other hand, was angry and told him to get out of his way. He was not concerned at all about the ultimate reason for the meeting. He had not noticed that their paths had actually crossed. The young man, obviously, in this case, was consumed with self importance and superiority paradigm nonsense, where the old man was paying attention to attunement. Right? It's just capital R reading here. Mona's culture bringing it to more. Very different. One is immersed in superiority paradigm, the other one is focused on attunement. Massive differences in the consequences. Right? Don Juan mimicked the motions of someone going after something that was rolling over. He said that the old man's goods had turned over and were rolling down the street. The young man saw the goods. He thought he had found his food for the day. They helped the old man up and insisted on helping him carry the heavy goods. The old man told him he was on his way home in the mountains, and the young man insisted on going with him at least part of the way. The old man took the road to the mountains, and as they walked, he gave the young man part of the food he had bought at the market. The young man ate to his heart's content, and when he was quite satisfied, he began to notice how heavy the goods were and clutched them tightly. Don Juan opened his eyes and smiled with a devilish grin and said that the young man asked, what do you carry in these goods? I can only imagine Don Juan asking this in a Carlos questioning voice, right, Vina? Why do you
Yes.
carry, what do you carry in these goods? The old man did not answer, but told him that he was going to show him a companion or friend who could alleviate his sorrows and give him advice and wisdom about the ways of the world. Don Juan made a majestic gesture with both hands and said that the old man summoned the most beautiful deer the young man had ever seen. The deer was so tame, it came to him and walked around him. It glittered and shone. The young man was spellbound and knew right away that it was a spirit deer. The old man told him then, if he wished to have that friend and its wisdom, all he had to do was let go of the goods.
Don
What
Juan's
do you
brain
think about
portrayed
this?
ambition.
No. Sorry, I wasn't doing it to read. I was pausing to absorb it. Because here
Yes,
we are at the crux point, at the choice between monist and superiority paradigm.
yes.
Right? That's the decision when you look at it from overview perspective. And this is going to be our topic for next week in the monist show. Monist culture and overview perspective. It makes all the difference when you can understand things from an overview perspective. Like, yeah, that's the choice. Choice is monist or superiority paradigm. Really, really huge, right?
Yes.
Uh, and all he had to do was let go of the goods. Don Juan's grin portrayed ambition. He said that the young man's petty desires were pricked upon hearing such a request. Don Juan's eyes became small and devilish as he voiced the young man's questions. What do you have in these four enormous goods? Don Juan said that the old man very supremely replied that he was carrying food, pinole, and water. He stopped narrating the story and walked around in a circle a couple of times. I did not know what he was doing, but apparently it was part of the story. The circle seemed to portray the deliberations of the young man. Now, look at how corruptive superiority paradigm thinking is. Yeah, it is providing the context, the paradigm in which this young man has to make his decisions. And to me, I feel deeply, deeply, deeply sorry for this young man. All right, actually, Veena,
Yes.
will you continue reading, please?
Okay.
Yeah,
You
Don
were
Juan said
scrolling.
that.
Okay. John once said that, of course, the young man had not believed a word. He calculated that if the old man, who was obviously a wizard, was willing to give a spirit deer for his gourds, then the gourds must have been filled with power beyond belief.
Ah, right there. You see the sadness of this,
Yes.
because the young man is not aware of Monas and Monas culture. He cannot comprehend that somebody would be able to make an offer that is not in some way got some counterbalance to it, right?
Mm.
That doesn't make some sort of logical sense within superiority paradigm. He cannot conceive of generosity. He cannot conceive of moreness. He cannot conceive of pure giving. He cannot conceive of somebody doing the thing because it's the right thing to do.
Mm.
He cannot conceive of being tested by the universe. Well,
Mm.
in the young man's logic, right? He's saying, spirit, dear, this must be very valuable. But what kind of value? Material value, not spiritual value. It's food and water is very valuable. It'll keep you alive, yes. But he's thinking riches, wealth. Yeah, that's the only
Yes.
thing that could possibly match. There is no amount of wealth that could match the value of a spirit. None. But he doesn't have the framework, the conceptuality. He doesn't have the language, right, to understand this appropriately. And it's dreadfully sad. Within the context of what he was raised up in, this is the only decision he can sadly, unfortunately, come to. Not technically so. Yes, we can break out of those boundaries, and I know this because I have done it. It's difficult. It is difficult to step outside of that box of the known. The known is that this must be wealthy, and the spirit is maybe it's a trick, whatever. It's the unknown. Right? But to step into that unknown, if you do it, it's transformative. You have to take that leap of faith at some point. Right? All right, please continue, Beeman.
Okay. I think that okay, this is a right point to
No,
actually
no, no,
just.
no, 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 no. We have to get to the end of the good story. It's not much more now. Yeah.
Okay. Don Juan contorted his face into a devilish grin and said that the young man declared that he wanted to have the goats. There was a long pause that seemed to mark the end of the story. Don Juan remained quiet. Yet I was sure he wanted me to ask about it, and I did. What happened to the young man?
It took the goods.
He replies with a smile of satisfaction. There was another long pause. I laughed. I thought that this had been a real Indian story. Don Juan's eyes were shining as he smiled at me. There was an air of innocence, okay, about him. He began to laugh in soft spurts and asked me,
Don't you want to know about the goods?
"Of course I want to know. I thought that was the end of the story,"
Oh no.
he said with a mysterious light in his eyes.
The young man took his goods and ran away to an isolated place and opened them. Of course, he's going to open them in an isolated place, right?
Yes. What did he find? Don Juan glanced at me, and I had the feeling he was aware of my mental gymnastics. He shook his head and chuckled. Well, I told him, were the
Urged.
gourds empty?
I urged him. Yeah. There was only food and
Yes,
water
I urge
inside
him.
the gourds. Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were struggling with the pronunciation of words.
No,
There
no,
was
no.
only food and water inside the gourds. And the young man, in a fit of anger, smashed them against the rocks.
I said that his
Unbelievable.
reaction. I said that his reaction was only not natural. Anyone in his
What?
position.
Whoa, 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 whoa. In what world, in what ridiculous, preposterous, absurd, outrageous, just nonsensical word is it natural to smash words of food and water? Where? Where did you get this idea from? How did you come to this idea that is natural? What you mean is it's natural for you to not be angry and annoyed and miffed and do stupid things as a result of your stupidity. You compound your stupidity with other stupidity. This is natural? No, it is completely and utterly unnatural. It is the most idiotically unnatural thing ever. And it comes from ego,
Yes,
self-importance. Okay?
yes.
So
I
let's
said
read that last part again, right?
I
Yeah.
said that his
And
reaction was only natural. Anyone in his position would have done the same. Don Juan's reply was that the young man was a fool who did not know what he was looking for. He did not know what a power was, so he could not tell whether or not he had found it. He had not taken responsibility for his decision. Therefore, he was angered by his blunder. He accepted to gain something and got
he
nothing
expected.
instead. He expected what else? What I said?
I don't know, but it wasn't expected. Doesn't matter.
He expected to gain something and got nothing instead. Don Juan speculated that if I were the young man and if I had followed my inclinations, I would have ended up angry and remorseful and um, would no doubt have spent the rest of my life feeling sorry for myself for what I had lost. Then he explained the behavior of the old man. He had cleverly fed the young man so as to give him the daring of a satisfied stomach. Thus, the young man, upon finding only food in the gourds, smashed them in a fit of anger.
He had been aware of his decision. Sorry, had he been aware of his decision and assumed responsibility for it, he would have taken the food and would have been more than satisfied. And perhaps he might even have realized that the food was power too.
Wow.
There's nothing natural, Carlos. The only reason that you say it's natural is because you do the same stupid stuff and you want to excuse your own idiocy, your own foolishness, your own indulgence by saying it's natural. It is the ultimate BS. And this is how our culture has been built by people doing foolish things and then insisting it's natural and that's the way it is to cover their own idiocy. And they've created this whole culture of excusing. It's nonsense. Absolute, utter, complete nonsense. And I know people who would not do that, not in a million years. Bina would never do that. No one in
No,
Bina's family or an extended family would ever do that. Am I right, Bina?
no, no, never.
It's impossible. So it's not natural at all. To say so is unnatural. Yeah?
Yes.
It's a lie. It is an insidious lie which creates shoulds and supposed to. Well, isn't that what he should and supposed to do in the situation? Well, of course. You were really angry and you were really annoyed. It's mind blowing how narcissists and egotists create this culture to justify their own foolishness. Don't buy into it. Don't buy into it. This is what monist culture is. It is not this nonsense, right? It's being
Yes.
sensible, being sensible. In terms of fathers and their idiotic behaviors and acts, uh, there's much you can do. Remember my story about eating food and being forced to eat what was on your plate,
Yes.
right? So just
Yes.
to recap the story really quickly, right? When I got to a certain age, I got to eat at the big table, and now suddenly I had to eat whatever there was. And I had already developed my taste, and certain things were just inedible to me. I mean, they tasted like poison, like really, I don't know. How do you eat something that your body tells you absolutely no, no, no? This is just horrible. You can't do it. Anyway, so, well, if you don't eat it, you know what's going to happen. Well, what was going to
Yes.
happen? You're going to get a hiding, right? But the
Yes.
thing is that I leveraged that situation. I had some power. You think, well, it's physical. Your father's bigger than you. How can you do anything about getting hiding? Well, you can run away, I guess, but then you're not going to have food. Yeah, I leveraged it by leveraging his self-importance, by going with this air of disappointment, right, in my father. I never complained. I never remonstrated. Yes, that he said that was a condition. Fine, I accept that. I accept the punishment, not a problem. But I'm disappointed in him for being crappy. Not for punishing me for not eating. He said he was going to do it, so fine. You've got to do it now. Otherwise, it's even worse. Huh? But
Yes.
disappointment, and of course, it changed his behavior, right? And it just went away. The point I'm making is that even in a situation where you think you are powerless, you have power. Yeah? Just got to pay attention. Got to pay attention, right? It's always something
Yes.
you can do. Always something you can do. You're never powerless. Don't assume that you are, right? And also that was an act of polishing my own spirit. Yeah, because I had to be impeccable after that. Remember, I bought my freedom because of that. But as a result, I was supposed to be impeccable. Right? I couldn't say, where others would say, well, you kind of pointing fingers at us to say we're crappy, and yes, we are. They must say this out loud. It's internally. But the moment I did the same thing, they were going to jump all over me and point me out to be a hypocrite, right? Because that would absolve their own consciences. So I could never do that because they were ready to pounce. So it forced me to polish my own spirit continually, which is what I spent all my life doing. I'm just saying though, I was making a point about when you understand power. Power comes in many different ways. Yes, that was a gift of power.
Hmm.
My father didn't know it, he didn't realize it. But if you think of intent, let's go to the absolute deepest mourns. What is my father and my mother's intent? Their intent was to do good for their children, to be the best parent they could do. In their shallowness, that's what they thought. But still a deep intent, regardless of how shallowly they might think to apply it, right? They had no clue on how to be parents. They were terrible parents, right? They're completely and utterly clueless. And what they thought was to be a parent like that. That was what they thought being a good parent was, right? Doesn't matter. The intent was there. Now, that intent from the universe says, okay, we're going to create a circumstance here in which your intent can actually materialize. Not in the way you think because you don't have a clue, but your intent is pure. And we are going to satisfy that, right? So now, me as the child, other siblings likewise, they could have taken those circumstances and turned it around like I did. Yes, it's very powerful, very, very powerful, very, very powerful. Now, many little things like that happen. Many little things like that happen. Including like the 1 cent story where I got pocket money and it was 1 cent. It taught me independence of being and taught me to defy authority. Now, I threw the cent away, which was an extremely difficult thing to do at 5 years old. Yeah?
Yes.
It took
Yes.
a real act of will, of courage, of personal insistence, and was risky. I mean, it was a scary thing to do.
Hmm.
So, see, acts of power, polish your spirit. Fascinating stuff. Fascinating stuff. Yeah, taking responsibility. And of course, that was me taking responsibility for my decision, which is why the story came up. Yeah. I didn't
Yes.
eat the food, and I was fully willing to accept full responsibility. I could not complain about getting a hiding, and I was absolutely 100% clear about this, yeah? Because in that situation, right, I had made a decision, and now I've got to take responsibility for it. If I complain, I'm not taking responsibility for it, and all that's going to happen is an extra hiding for not taking responsibility.
Hmm.
Correct?
Yes.
It's not. It's going to make it worse, not better. Now, you cannot complain. You can't grumble. You can't be upset. You can't be annoyed. You can't rail against it. No, you made the decision. That was it. Whether the decision is fair or not is irrelevant. You knew it was an unfair situation, and still, you've got to make peace with things, the reality, not the way you want it to be. Right? So I did. I was quite happy. Okay, this is what I got to do. And I had the air. I added it specifically on it to make it clear, make it aware to them that if this is what it's going to be every day, okay, well, so be it. Eating the food was worse than that. Yeah. And my father saw that I was willing to do that. But of course, when I added the self-importance of him being an unnecessary bully and leveraged my mother and my sisters into it, he was a goner. He had no hope, right? There's no chance for him in this little mini battle. He had no chance. It was outplayed. We have things we can do. Except that it started though with me assuming full 100% responsibility for my decision because I really was prepared. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. My father may have been quite disciplined and really wanted to insist on this. Yeah, it would have been a tough thing. I would have had to change my policy, I think. I don't know how many hidings I would have been able to accept to eat. But then again, you also kind of get used to hidings after a while. So maybe, So who knows? I don't know. But I knew that there was a possibility that I didn't know it was just going to be a couple of them. I think it was like 2 hidings actually. That died very quickly, maybe 3. I don't remember exactly. But it could have been, gone on for months and years. All right, just on that point, assume responsibility for your decisions. That's the point of my story. It is ridiculously, 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 ridiculously powerful. Oh, there is one more point that I want to make on this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've asked this question of you before, Bina.
Okay.
But when it comes to assuming responsibility, when Carlos says, oh, it's so hard. Carlos, just hold on a second here, Mr. Carlos. I want to ask you a question. Very simple little question, right? Right now, Carlos, right now, in this very moment that I'm asking this question, do you, Carlos, do you know that weird, unusual, unkind, unfair, irrational, ridiculous, crazy, horrible things could happen to you in the future? As a possibility, do you know it could happen? Carlos?
Mm.
You have to be Carlos here now. Put your Carlos voice on,
Okay.
please, Bina. Do you know this could happen, Carlos? You
Yes.
are
I
aware, you are aware that idiotic, unfair, unreasonable, bad things, nasty things, horrid things, death even could happen to you in the future. Yes, you are aware
Yes. Yes.
this could happen. All right, Carlos, knowing that this stuff could happen, do you, Carlos, now deliberately choose to continue living right this very minute, knowing that the possibility exists of all this horrible stuff potentially happening to you? Do you, Carlos, choose now, right now? Do you choose to continue to live? Do you, Carlos?
Yes. Like duh.
Say it out in full. Yes, I, Carlos, choose to continue to live knowing that horrible stuff might happen. Say it in full.
Okay. Yes. Yes. I, Carlos, even with knowing all the bad, unpleasant, and unjustified things can happen, I still choose to live.
In this moment now, in other words, Carlos, you have accepted responsibility for continuing to live, yes?
Yes.
So now, Carlos, when those stuff happens, you cannot complain because you chose. You had the choice to not to, but you chose. You chose in
Yep.
full consciousness, in full awareness. So that means you cannot complain, right? Now
Yes.
get into Carlos mode, not Bina mode, because Bina says yes, this is duh. Carlos is going to be like, oh, damn it, I never thought about that. Oh, you tricked me again.
Yes.
Right? Carlos is going to squirm. He's going to rebel against this idea that he cannot complain because Carlos loves to complain. And then Don Juan is going to laugh. You screwed now, Carlos. You screwed. You cannot complain anymore. And Don is going to find this immensely funny, and he'll be rolling on it. Yeah, Don Juan will think this is most amusing. Carlos's
Yes.
conundrum, because Carlos is going to be in that conflict, right? And Carlos is going to be all grumpy and sulky. And Don Juan will be most amused. Yes, when we assume responsibility, it's a big deal. But, of course, now we are living deliberately. Think of this, Carlos. Think of this. Instead of thinking about having to give up complaining, think rather of now you are living deliberately chosen. You've added power to your life, have you not, Carlos?
Yes.
And right in that moment, if I was there with Carlos, I said, Carlos, do me a favor. Just will you walk around that bush over there and come back, please? Okay, Carlos, oh, another one I've done once, weird Indian crazy old man stuff, right?
Yes.
And Carlos goes and he walks around the bush and he comes back. And now, Carlos, would you please walk around that bush again, but this time walk deliberately.
Hmm.
What does Carlos do? He stops. And now he's feeling a bit foolish. Now his self-importance is coming in. To walk deliberately. What do you mean by this, right? And he has all these questions instead of actually taking it on and doing it, the application, right? This is where Carlos falls down with the application. They would have been an example of application. Yeah? But Carlos would have doubted it. He would have felt, oh, I'm going to look foolish, walking silly. I don't know how to do it. And because I don't know how to do it, I look silly. And so he's going to break down. He's going to have a very hard time fulfilling this task. But should he actually do it, he's going to realize, oh my goodness, to walk regularly and to walk deliberately, two different things. Walk deliberately, Carlos, in everything. That walk is metaphorical as well. Yes. On that note, we'll leave it right there. Linda, I hope you're still with us. I hope you found some value. I hope you found some joy, some interest, and I hope you enjoyed being here as well. Even if you were only here for a few seconds, I love it. I really appreciate it. Very big deal. Yeah? Brilliant. All right. Bye bye, everybody.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and you guys are most welcome to join us tomorrow also because we'll be here same time and same place, and we'll continue with this. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing, and
Yeah.
bye for now.
Just want to say hi to Z Seller before we go on IG. And yes, we'll see,
Hello.
see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow. Yeah.
Yes.
Bye bye,
Bye.
everybody.